Hi, you're listening to The Comedian's Tea Party with Deaves. Fair warning, this podcast may contain adult content. It may not. I don't know. I never really have a plan. So let's listen on and find out. Hello and welcome to episode 50, the half-century and crucially, the Christmas episode of The Comedian's Tea Party with Deaves. And in this episode, I have got Rachel Creeger. Now, I realise this is a bit late for a Christmas episode. It is it's coming out on the 3rd of January. So, yes, a little bit late, but it's still good. I recorded it in time for Christmas. Turns out, even when you are locked down with COVID, it's hard to get stuff done in time because there's a lot to do in a house. But regardless, we have a great chat. I will say off the top, trigger warning for anyone who's grossed out by sort of disgusting things. We talk about eye surgery for a little bit in the middle, but there's some very good chat that comes afterwards. So if you do start to get a little bit grossed out, just skip past that. But also, I made sure not to say anything too gross, so hopefully it'll be okay. We talk about Rachel's friend who designed some tea bags, which I love. She sent me some photos of those, so I'll be putting those up on the old Instagram, so go and check that out at Tea Party Pod. Designed by Cherry Pear, I believe that's how it's pronounced. But yeah, they're really good tea bags, really cool. So I might try and get in touch and try and get some of those tea bags myself. If you do listen past the eye surgery stuff, and I really think that you should, because if you do get to the end, you will find out why you could consider Rachel a genital candyman, and that will only make sense at the very end of the podcast. But that is a funny concept. There's also some drilling at the end. Try to edit that out as best as I possibly can, but as you will hear, there is still some left in. My editing abilities can only do so much. Talking about my editing abilities, there is quite a bit of chat at the beginning about using and editing with Audacity. So I cut that out because I'm not that interested. Although, if you do edit with Audacity and you want some tips, let me know. I'll send that bit of conversation to you. We do sort of jump straight in to the conversation, but it's fine. But I don't think it's too jarring. It works pretty well. Again, it's come out well because I edit so well. So, hopefully you enjoy it. Crucially, what you need to do is make sure to go and buy tickets for my Leicester Comedy Festival show. I will also hopefully be previewing it in Southend in the next few weeks, but I'm still waiting to get that booked. So it's not done yet. I may do something online, so look out for that because then everyone can come along. But definitely get tickets for my Leicester show because at one of those shows, I believe the awards people are going to come down. So I need you there. I'll see you at the end for some plugs. Enjoy. Hello.
I'm genuinely drinking it, like not just for you.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. So you said
not even acting.
You drink herbal teas in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, herbal tea because basically I love dairy, right? I love dairy to the most enormous amount. Like I love cheese probably more than my children.
Yeah.
But
hang on, wait.
Like
you love cheese more than your children love cheese, or you love cheese more than you love your children?
More than I love them.
Good grief.
No, I do love them more.
Sure.
Jewish mother and everything. But yeah, I like a lot of my family. I'm very lactose intolerant, and for the first however many years of my life, I would put up with whatever that meant, like whatever discomfort for myself and sometimes those surrounding me that lactose brought on because cheese is delicious. But then I knew it bothered me. So, for example, when I used to be a singer, I would not have anything with milk for 48 hours for a performance because it would affect my throat. Yeah. And then cue EastEnders dramatic music. I was in a big fire a few years ago and I sustained quite a lot of damage to my throat from smoke inhalation. And every professional that I saw said to me, you know, you have to give up dairy, right? You know, dairy is really bad for you and it's really bad for you specifically.
Probably give up being in fires as well, I should think.
Yeah, so far I've successfully given it up before and after that event.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite a drama. And I just thought if every consultant that you see says to you, don't have it, you should probably pay attention. So now I've changed to oat milk, but it's not the same. And I'm allergic to nuts, so I can't have a lot of the fake cheeses. So I'm really on like the herbals.
Oh, yeah.
The herbal teas.
Right, now,
that's my sad story.
We've got to circle back to a couple of things from that. When were you a singer?
Oh, always. I started off singing when I was 5, and I was in like choirs. I was in local kind of community theatre, and I was a musical theatre brat as a young child.
Oh, cool. So I worked in theatre for a long time, so I've been around it.
Have you?
Yeah.
In what capacity?
Oh, backstage. Technical.
I was very much front of stage, but also because I wasn't a brilliant dancer, I think I was often given like bits of solos when other dancing was happening, so that I could just stand still somewhere and sing into a microphone. But so I did musical theatre for a long time. Then I was in choirs, and eventually I was in not just I was in a vocal harmony group that became, and I want you to like stay still, and I don't want you to change how you feel about me. I don't want, I still remember the little people and everything. But I was in the biggest and best known ultra-Orthodox Jewish girl band ever in the UK.
Oh my God, I've heard of you for sure. Like that's
You definitely have it. We were really, really famous to ultra-Orthodox Jewish women, is all I can tell you, because we only performed in front of women.
Oh, okay.
And that was
is that part of a Jewish thing?
No, it's a Jewish thing. Right. For very, very religious people, the women don't sing in front of men. Really? It's in my first solo show, I talked about this quite a lot, and this was the bit where everyone looked at me like I was suddenly doing a TED talk and just nodded, and then I had to like insert joke here to make it like not just an RE lesson with a particularly bouncy supply teacher. So yeah, there is this thing, and it's to do with the translation of one word in I'm trying to remember which of the holy bits of books it's in. I think it's in, no, I don't remember, but King Solomon is about, I don't know if you've heard of him biblically, but King Solomon overheard a woman singing, and he caused him to think of her in this way, using this word. Right. And the word has numerous translations. It can be vulnerable, it can be open, whatever, but there is a nakedness translation. And suddenly, at some point in history, the rabbis were like, hang on, if women singing makes men think of them naked, that shouldn't be allowed. So can't sing in front of men anymore, because you don't want to tempt the men. Whereas I think that obviously if you hear a beautiful woman's voice and it makes you think of her vulnerability, the same way if you hear a beautiful male voice, it does the same thing. I don't abide by that rule. But out of the 7 of us in our group, which was called Kol Sheva, which means the voice of 7 in Hebrew.
I know that. I've heard of you, of course.
You have not, but 4 people were quite strict about that law. So, or that, it's not really a law, but that guidance. Yeah. So therefore that meant as a group, that was our limitation. And I co-wrote quite a few of our songs, and we were at one point super big in that community. Like I think the biggest gig we did was for about 800 women. Yeah. And great. We had a single that was released in America. Really? Was part of an album of contemporary Jewish women's voices. And then we were kind of like a manufactured band, because we were all from the same women's theatre company, and then we got kind of put together for something else. We had so much fun, like we just decided to stay together and do more stuff. And then like with all bands, we eventually went our separate ways. But Ruth, who was the musical director of our group, and she was one of the performers, she was in Kol Sheva, she and I continued to work together on other stuff afterwards. And she became a photographer. She does all my press photos, everything done by her. And we recently had a cup of tea together to discuss whether we were going to maybe try and write some new stuff.
Oh, nice.
So you're hearing it here first, and also it may never happen. So
yeah, well, if it does or if it doesn't, I will hear it all the same.
So yeah, that's the singer bit ticked off.
Well, there you go. Oh, for the listeners, by the way, Rachel is Jewish.
Oh yeah, hi, professional Jew.
Yes, yeah. Suspect it may come up conversationally. Well, it already has, hasn't it? That's
it has.
Yeah.
Even my mug has a Jewish pun on it. If you want to know.
I can't read it.
That's okay. I'll explain it to you. It's a Hebrew letter called Tet is the name of the letter, and that's the punctuation called a chirik. And so together that says T as a kind of pun. because it's not the real word for tea in Hebrew, but it's like a t sound letter with an I vowel. So tea, but it's cleverly shaped to look like a teapot.
It's got little,
and it has like little smoke bubbles.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's my friend Richard designed mugs and he made this one. So yeah, very cool.
A Jewish pun.
Well, I have other puns to show you, by the way.
Go on, yeah.
Because
in like Jewish language.
I brought stuff.
Oh, amazing.
No, these are in everyone's language, right. American. I have a friend called Shari Pear, who's a cartoonist, and a tea company commissioned her to design tea bag packaging for important Americans, although this one is definitely British. So I'll send you pictures of them if you want to share them.
Oh, that'd be great.
We've got Agatha Christie with a picture of Agatha Christie, and that is Earl Grey. We've got Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Lovely.
That's a picture. Donald Trump, which is pure white tea with peach, which I think is quite funny.
That is funny.
Who have we got? Hillary Clinton.
Lovely.
And Araminta Ross, which is Harriet Tubman's previous name. She changed her name.
Oh, okay.
And then we've got Shakespeare Mint.
Lovely. That's brilliant.
I mean, it's quite visual for a podcast, but also I thought I've got really talented friends in the region of tea, and this being a tea-themed event, I just thought I would show them off to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And who is that? That's
Shari Pear, cartoonist. She used to be the Red Bull cartoonist.
Oh, really?
But now she does other stuff.
Like for the adverts?
Yeah, and also a Jew.
Well,
Who
there
knew?
you go. Amazing. So, I mean, just for context, by the way, I didn't mention this previously because this specifically is the Christmas episode, which is why I thought it'd be particularly interesting to have a Jewish person on, because
Jesus was Jewish.
But well, this is exactly the point. Yeah, Jesus was Jewish. That is well known because I've got a lot of Jewish friends. Some of whom, well, most of whom, they're not practicing, so they're culturally Jewish, but not religiously. But you are obviously religiously Jewish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been practicing so long, I'm quite good at it now.
Nice. Yeah. Very well versed.
Thank you.
Do you do Christmas to any extent, or?
No, we don't. Well, we don't observe Christmas as a family at all. And in fact, a lot of my dad's side of the family have been in the medical profession in some way. Right. So that meant that they always worked over Christmas because they covered for their Christmas celebrating colleagues.
Yeah,
and I used to be in social work, and I always worked over Christmas for the same reason that my colleagues would cover me for Yom Kippur or whatever. So generally speaking, no, but then they'd often have my extended family would have Boxing Day off, and we would do a kind of family get together just because it was so rare for people to not be working.
Right.
My cousins used to do like a big family get together, but it was never a Christmas meal that I've never had a tree. I've pulled a cracker in my life. I've touched tinsel, but I've never had it. And I was always a bit not to tinsel so far. But yeah, I've talked a lot about Christmas in my stand-up because I do really love it. It's so, I mean, in a kind of Britishy way.
Yeah.
It always seems like fun and glamorous, and I love Hanukkah, or Hanukkah as it's correctly pronounced, but I love Hanukkah a lot. It's brilliant. Donuts, candles, nothing wrong with any of that. But I don't know. And we did succumb last year, and I don't know if people will be judgmental about this, but we succumbed to Hanukkah fairy lights because it was so miserable last year when we were still kind of, in terms of the pandemic, we could only meet people outside and all of that. It was still 6 people and outdoors and all that.
Yeah.
And because part of Hanukkah is you light the candelabra, the menorah, you light it in the window, in theory, the window facing the street, because it's about publicising the miracle of the Festival of Lights.
Right, okay.
So I wanted to, and I thought about how our neighbours, because it coincided a bit more closely with Christmas last year, our neighbours all had like gorgeous lights everywhere. And I was in one of the Jewish shops and they had Hanukkah themed fairy lights. So I just thought, if all we've got is these windows because we can't have people over, we can't go out with people, whatever, then why not cheer everyone up a little bit as well?
Absolutely,
so we put up our fairy lights, and we had them this year again. And I think now we're fully Hanukkah fairy lighted forever.
Yeah.
But not a tree. That is a different thing.
Well, because I was reading this last night because I got on the internet knowing that this was the Christmas episode and Googled, do Jewish people celebrate Christmas? And I discovered that there is how do you pronounce it? Hanukkah. I can't...
Hanukkah, very good.
Oh,
yeah, just clear your throat.
Yeah.
Hanukkah, perfect.
There's a Hanukkah bush.
Yeah, some people do that. I mean, I think because for a lot of people, Christmas has become such a kind of a cultural thing as opposed to a religious thing.
Yeah.
And so they try and kind of combine those things. And particularly in families of mixed faith, like if one parent is Jewish and one parent is Christian, or one of them is a non-practicing, whatever it is, or atheist even, they're just from a secular point of view, they're nice to have, they're pretty, you can decorate them, it's fun to put presents. Like, I totally get the appeal. Yeah. And I've got, much like you, I've got a lot of non-Jewish friends, obviously. And I grew up on an estate in Essex where there weren't that many Jewish families, let's be honest. Yeah. So I was quite used to going to people's houses where there were trees. But so some people like to get a tree and decorate it with Jewish symbols instead and put their presents under it. I mean, that's not a thing my family does, and I'm not judging anyone. I see why you'd want to. It's fun.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, it's very enjoyable. Really, I don't know. It changes your mood, I think. You sort of walk into a room and see Christmas stuff.
I love it. I love going to people's houses and they've got trees and it feels jolly. There's no denying it. It does bring the jolliness. There is a weird custom amongst very Orthodox Jews. They call Christmas Mittelnacht in Yiddish, which I think just means they're like something like the not our night or nothing night. Maybe it's nothing night. And instead, and to make sure you're not celebrating Christmas, you do lots of religious learning instead. Oh, okay. So you kind of spend your time on Talmudic learning instead of celebrating Christmas. I mean, I haven't gone to either extreme there. But growing up, we did some Christmassy things, but they weren't celebrating Christmas as such. And probably the most Christmassy thing we did was that my grandma used to take me and my sister up to the West End to Selfridges and Harrods to Santa's grotto to sit on his knee and get a present, to see the lights and to have the present just for the fun. And they didn't do like a religion check at the entrance to the grotto or anything, anyone was allowed in. And so we were allowed to do that as long as we didn't in any way else engage, like no letters up chimneys, no stockings. We did get presents and cards from non-Jewish friends and relatives. And my husband's family, he's got a lot of non-Jewish family members. Like, he was the first one of all his cousins on one side to marry within the Jewish faith. The rest all married out. And so he's got quite a large amount of his extended family who aren't Jewish. And one of the cousins who is puts on most years, obviously not now, because I don't know if you know, there's a little virus thing, but
familiar with, I have it.
Most years she puts on a big party. Oh yeah, of course. I should have asked how you're feeling. Do you need chicken soup?
No, I'm fine. Yeah, no, it's all good. Actually, chicken soup would be lovely, but I'm a big fan of soup.
Pop round.
Yeah, but you can't come in. But
yeah, she makes this party, and you give Christmas cards and presents to the non-Jewish people, and you do Hanukkah ones for the Jewish people. And she tells me what she's making, and I make like a kosher equivalent. So there's food for everyone, and yeah, so we're a blended family.
Oh, so is there a kosher pigs in blankets?
I mean, yeah, less bacony.
Yeah. Thing is, right, because there's a lot of people, like, bacon is the sticking point, if you will, for a lot of people who say they can never be vegan because they're like, oh yeah, but I love bacon. I'm like,
really?
Take it or leave it. I'm not too fussed by bacon.
I've never had it.
Yeah, but pigs in blankets, very good.
Yeah, Joe Moore, Jewish comedian. Yeah. That's I think the thing he wouldn't give up. He loves pigs in blankets. He's got quite a lot of material about them.
Yeah. I had a joke about pigs in blankets for a little while, which I occasionally bring out at Christmas time. People quite enjoy it. And it's just that I thought pigs in blankets were my favourite Christmas food. Like, I love them. I absolutely love them, like, every year. So I just eat so many of them. But then I think it's fair to say that your favourite Christmas food should be the food that you eat the most at that time of year, which is why I came to realise that my favourite Christmas food must be sellotape.
That's a good joke. I like it.
Thank you. I told someone the other day and they were like, I don't get it.
No, it's got like the smell of truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is everyone just going, oh yeah, I do. I do consume a lot of sellotape, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Although, not this year, because I went to, it was my nephew's birthday yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday.
And I had to wrap his present, and I'd normally bite the sellotape, and I was like, no, I better not do that, actually.
No. Oh my God, it's like sending rice in.
COVID. Yeah, yeah.
That would be horrendous. Your poor nephew, he's like, wow, a truck, and also COVID.
Yeah.
Are you feeling right?
Scribble Scramble, actually.
Sorry?
Yeah, I'm fine. Scribble Scramble is what I call it.
What is that?
It's a little game where you've got to get there's a big ball bearing, and you've got to get it from one end of the sort of track to the other by sort of pushing buttons and
sounds
twisting
good.
Things. And yeah, it was massive in the 90s. They brought out another one.
Right.
And so he was asking for it. So I was like, yes, absolutely, I will get you that.
I think we had something like that. It looked like a games console type thing, and then you had to move it around, and the ball moved on different levels. Is that it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds similar. Yeah. Yeah, that could be it.
Quite frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like it.
Yeah.
It's almost definitely it.
So is this your first round of COVID?
Yes. Yeah. And it's the latest one as well. Thought I'd jump straight in with the update.
I mean, I'm laughing out of the joke, not laughing at you and your COVID. That would be really cruel.
Yeah. It's fine. The only thing really is that my wife has got it, but she got it later, so it's basically cancelled our Christmas because I would have been out of isolation just in time, but then I gave it to her. So
yeah, you probably shouldn't really just leave her on her own while you go partying. It
would be unfair. Yeah. Plus she's pregnant, so that would be.
Wow.
That's
congratulations.
a big announcement. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first time I'm able to talk about it on the podcast.
How exciting.
Because the last 2 episodes of this, which I've released recently, but recorded in July. So, but life got in the way. But I bought a new house and sort of got promoted at work. So I ended up with sort of loads more hours on my plate, and then pregnancy. So yeah, everything sort of got in the way of everything else.
You've done all the big life stages in 6 months.
It's been... Yeah, well, I got married a year ago, so...
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing you're still standing. No wonder you caught COVID.
That's it. I'm exhausted. Yeah, I need to sit down. And this is 10 days of sitting down. It's not too bad. It's a bit boring, but,
Yeah.
I keep myself very well entertained. I've got a PlayStation 5.
Okay.
I've got a lot of TV to watch and a lot of sitcom to write, so...
What have you been watching?
What have I been watching? So, The Witcher, the second series of that came out the other day, so I've been watching that. Mm-hmm. I realised that because I thought I'd missed the last series of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Turns out I've got 3 series to catch up on, so I'm watching that in a minute.
Amazing.
Nearly done. I love that. Do you know that it never goes down in quality?
No, it's brilliant. But the Survivor episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm is one of my favourite episodes of anything ever in history, ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just find it hilarious. It's cringe. My husband can't watch the show at all. He can't deal with the cringe factor. Whereas
my wife can't.
I think it just makes me laugh so much. And just that, for anyone listening who hasn't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's the idea that you can feel that you're both inviting someone to a Jewish Friday night dinner who's a survivor, and it can have very different meanings, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
It's so good. But just everything about that show is just amazing. So if you don't watch it already, then you really should.
Unless you hate it, in which case, don't. It's not for you.
Yeah. What else have I been watching? Oh, I signed up to Next Up recently, so I've just watched loads of stand-up.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's like
watching all our friends doing it, and we're not on it.
Oh, that's literally what it is. I'm going through my friends first to go oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've not seen this show before.
I did a thing on Next Up with David Baddiel, and they, not just me, a few of us together, and they just put it up temporarily. It's not on there anymore, and I don't know why.
Oh, really?
And I keep emailing them to say I'd love to actually have that somewhere, have a copy of it, whatever, because it was interesting and funny, and it's me on the sort of telly. But
with David Baddiel.
They've stopped replying now, so I think they might be please stop writing to us.
Yeah. Although I find the best way to get someone to stop sending you stuff is just give them what they want.
Yeah. I mean, it's not difficult. And it's not I was in it, But there you go. I think it should have stayed on. It was a kind of panel discussion about being Jewish in the comedy industry in Britain. And we talked about like our material, we talked about our experiences, like experiences of anti-Semitism, and just sort of people, the sort of reactions of audiences, really, I guess, because, for example, in America, Jewish culture sort of seeped into everyday culture. So, for example, words like chutzpah for cheekiness is a word everybody knows. Like, you could go to wherever and you could say, oh, that guy had so much chutzpah. I can't do accents, but, you know, pretty much most Americans would know what that means. Whereas here, there isn't that commonality of language. People have watched sitcoms that have Jewish influence, like Seinfeld and Friends and whatever, which might not, you know, they're not about Jews as such, but they have that kind of turn of phrase, but it hasn't somehow filtered. Not enough people have watched it for it to have filtered into common language. Even because we're talking about musical theatre, there's a very famous musical called Falsettos, which is about a Jewish family, and it was huge on Broadway, and everyone knew it. And it has, I mean, it's about a family getting ready for a bar mitzvah, and the dad comes out as gay and he moves in with his partner. And it was a very groundbreaking piece of theatre. But even when it was put on here, and there was a lot of controversy actually when it was put on here for numerous reasons, which we can go into if you want. But one of the issues was that there isn't the familiarity with that language and that turn of phrase in the UK. So that was the thing we talked about quite a bit, I think, on the programme, about when we're writing. I often get asked, do I change my material if I'm performing, let's say, in a synagogue or in Ross McGrain's club? I'm just going to say that because you and I have both performed there together a lot. And I don't really change it at all, because I just try and make sure that whatever I'm saying is accessible anyway, because you can't guarantee everyone in that synagogue is going to have the same speech pattern as my rabbi growing up or whatever. So you just have to be accessible. But yeah, we talked about that quite a bit.
That's sort of part of what I do as well, because like a lot of I don't talk about weird things, but I talk about stuff in sort of a very sideaves manner, if you will. You know, like everything I do is sort of from my skewed perspective. And I found for a long time that I was writing stuff, and there'd be certain people who'd chime in with that, and they'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely, like I get it. But that you wouldn't get everyone getting on board. They'd be like, oh, okay, like, oh yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but it's not for me. So that's, it's sort of it's a thing, isn't it, to write so that it becomes more accessible.
Yeah, like your voice and your tale to tell, whatever that might be, or your jokes. But you obviously want the most people as possible in the room to kind of get a sense of where you're coming from. Otherwise, you might as well just stay at home and perform in front of the mirror with a hairbrush, which obviously I do as well. But so it was an interesting show, and also because there are some Jewish performers who've not really experienced anti-Semitism on the circuit, or from acts, or from promoters, or from audiences, and then there are others who really have. So it was interesting to hear everybody talking about their personal experiences, and I think I'm going to lobby next up to put it back up. It was a good show. That was funny.
Sounds good. Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Funny and interesting. Because let's face it, some of the stand-up that is around, not that funny. Is interesting, but you know.
Or some of it is neither, which is harsh.
And
I'm going to I'm going to update my tea side, because I'm familiar with your podcast somewhat, and I'm aware that often it goes on for a while. So what I did was I had a cup of tea ready, and then I've got a new tea in a thermosy mug thing waiting to be put into my mug here.
So let's circle back to that, because that was something else that I was going to bring up, because while you were telling me about being a singer and all of that, you also mentioned the tea. So what tea were you drinking first?
I was drinking peppermint tea first, which is, I think, a good standard morning drink. And now I've moved on to...
what brand?
It is. No, I'm trying to remember the name of the company. No, it's a nice brand, but I can't think of what it's called because it was on special offer, so I treated myself.
Oh, okay.
Pukka.
Oh, Pukka tea. Yeah, lovely.
Pukka tea. Yeah, so now I've moved on to lemon ginger manuka honey, which is a follow-up tea.
That sounds like that would be particularly good for my throat right now.
It is good for your throat. And I mentioned before I was in this fire, and afterwards that's when I really took to finding good throat related teas. And I went to see a naturopath about it.
What is that?
I have a lot of jokes about all of this, which I feel like I've told so often now because it's been going on for a few years. And a naturopath sort of looks at natural remedies for things based on your holistic body and whatever. Just a lot of people said to me, do that. I did all the NHS stuff.
Is that not essentially a homeopath?
I think a homeopath is a bit different because a homeopath is like take an extract of sore throat that's been dissolved in 9 million % water and breathe on it and then... Whatever. I've been to homeopaths before. I've been to everything at some point. But a naturopath is more like, instead of having all these chemicals, you could have this instead. So she advised me to drink a mixture. And this is and if I've got a bad throat, honestly, this is what I drink. And I make it in a thermos flask. Other brands are available. And I leave it to stew. And then I kind of dilute it into tea. And it's fresh mint, fresh sage, fresh thyme, fresh turmeric, peppercorns, ginger. I apologise to all front rows of audiences when I've been drinking this. What else in it? Manuka honey or any kind of honey. And then you can have Manuka. I'll talk to you about Manuka in a second. But anyway, honey and fresh ginger, fresh lemon. And you put it all in and you kind of let it steep and stew and turn that into a tea. You have to be careful with the turmeric because it stains everything. And that is my bad throat remedy tea. I recommend it. It tastes really weird, but I sort of got used to it. Yeah.
That's I'm gonna listen back to that and then write all of that down and then possibly make it at some point.
Yeah. Just copyright to me because like if you end up selling it and making a fortune, then just bear in mind it's mine.
Isn't that copyright to your naturopath?
Well, she sort of said, combine some of these. And I was like, I'm chucking it all in. What's the worst that can happen? It does help. It's nice. Yeah? It's weird, but nice.
Go on. So, let's talk about that. But also, you've brought the fire up twice now, and I'm intrigued. Is that, that could be a horrible memory, so don't talk about it if it is, but that's...
but it's an unusual memory.
Right.
Okay. Well, Manuka honey just is the most incredible thing because you could heal a burn with it, right? It's an amazing, amazing thing. And you can have it as I would say, don't buy the most expensive Manuka you can afford. Go for when there's a sale on in Holland at Barrett and don't put it in hot drinks and dilute it. Have a teaspoon and swallow it slowly and it will help your bad throat. Trust me.
Oh, okay.
I'm like a witch. But the fire was quite an interesting thing because I guess I'm assuming most of our friends in comedy, I'm like a proper lefty liberal type and namby-bamby theatre type. And I was performing and working in Israel. I was sort of performing a bit and then I was running some comedy workshops in Israel and went to stay actually with my cousins of my husband who happened to also be friends of mine before we ever became married people. Their son was having his bar mitzvah in the middle of this tour. So I went to stay there for the bar mitzvah and I was accommodated by a really nice family who live near them. And they live in a village which some people will describe as a settlement, but it's older than that. So it's been around a long time. Okay. And where it is might be sort of, let's say, questionable now in terms of the complexity of things going on in the Middle East, but it wasn't always. So it's one of those things where because boundaries change and the politics change and the regions, people's views of the regions shift around. So while now it's a kind of contentious place, that isn't its history, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, of course.
But anyway, I didn't really think much about that. I've got a lot of family in Israel and I'm also very strict about when I do stuff there. It's open to anyone, in the majority of Israel, it's not an apartheid state like people imagine. So I've had people of all denominations and colours and creeds, etc., and everything, like you'd imagine. So anyway, so I'd been based mainly in Jerusalem, a bit in Tel Aviv, and then I went for Sabbath to stay in this village. And it was a really weird dry season. They have a season similar to Australia where the weather gets very, very hot and very, very dry. And there are occasional bushfires. And unfortunately, when there's I'm trying to be so circumspect to my language because I'm not a political comedian and I don't want to kind of turn it into something this isn't. But when there's periods of unrest in the area, then sometimes people wishing to cause disruption will use that dry, hot weather and the high winds that are brilliant for the bushfires to artificially create some. And that's basically what happened. I was staying with this really nice family who I didn't know in the back room of their house on the ground floor. And it was Friday night. I hadn't been in bed very long, like maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. I heard a weird noise, smelled a kind of strange smell. We knew there were the fires happening or whatever. And there's always the vague possibility if a fire comes in your general direction, you might get a warning to kind of move or to do whatever. But what it transpired had happened was that terrorists, because this is a terrorist act, regardless of your political stance, had approached the back area of this village where I was. This house was on the perimeter, and they'd lobbed Molotov cocktails over the fence and started one of these enormous fires, which, because everything was dry as tinder everywhere, and not the app tinder, the kind of fire lighting tinder.
I got you.
And everything was very dry. It was high winds. It was very hot. So as soon as these burst into flame, it created a massive wall of flames and set the place on fire. And we had to flee in what we were in my pajamas, wearing one of their kids' coats. And luckily, because I'm quite lazy, I hadn't really unpacked my rucksack. So I just grabbed my rucksack and my phone. I didn't have my charger. I left all kinds of other things in the room. But anyway, I had the majority of my stuff, and we kind of had to run for it. And there'd been a kind of, if there's a fire, meet in the kind of community centre and this, that. But that wasn't even viable, because this was like a wall of flame in a kind of maybe a 90s film where they had a lot of money for the special effects, like a big budget. I've never seen anything like it. It had huge cinders, like the sides of bricks, falling down all over the place in front of you. It was quite horrendous. And they had emergency services, they had whatever. And at the time, they assumed it was just a bushfire. And then they found on CCTV it was started intentionally. And what was incredible is through people's caring and consideration and people in the local areas, compassion. I mean, 300 and something families and all the visitors were evacuated. And I was one of the worst injured because I just happened to be, unfortunately, positioned where this all kicked off. So I had the most exposure to the smoke. And I didn't obviously have equipment. The firefighters all had, filters and whatever. I didn't have anything like that. So, and also I was wearing inappropriate shoes for running away from a fire, because they were kind of clogs, like stagey clogs. And so I sort of twisted my ankle and I fell over. And I also carried this massive rucksack just on one shoulder because I wasn't thinking about it. So I pulled lots of muscles. I had lots of cuts and scrapes, and I had this sort of really massive problem with my throat from the smoke inhalation. And but I managed to get out. And where we were staying was it was about maybe half an hour away from where one of my brothers lives. And the person, people just basically from the village brought all their cars to the front, and they took whoever, like if they had their family, they took their family. But if not, you just got into the next car. And it happened that the car we got into, they were traveling beyond that area where my brother lives. So they were able to drop me and some other family members of my extended family outside my brother's house at sort of 3:00 in the morning, reeking of smoke, covered in soot. We banged on the door, gave him a fright. He woke up and let us in. And then the people I was with, it was my husband's aunt and uncle, and their kids had all got into a different car. And so then we had like the whole stress of trying to find, we knew they'd be taken somewhere safe, but we didn't know where they were. We didn't know who had them. They weren't young kids. They were in their 20s, but one of them has learning difficulties. So it was quite stressful trying to find, once we knew where they were and that they were being looked after, we were being looked after, then, it was okay. But the people I was staying with, their house and about the 5 houses in that little cluster, they were burnt to the ground.
Wow.
So that was quite a big drama.
God.
You asked, now you know.
Yeah, I apologise. I shouldn't have ruined the podcast.
Well, do you know what? It was a very interesting experience for a lot of reasons. I mean, it can only be an interesting experience if you get away from it lightly, which obviously we all did.
Yeah, of course.
But not obviously for the people whose houses, I mean, most houses needed repairs. I mean, lots of houses had terrible smoke damage or damage from the water from the fires being put out. But not all of them were burnt down to the ground. They were very well set up. There was help from, I think, actually local Arab village. Actually, they came and helped put the fires out, and there was a lot of cooperative working because it's in everybody's interest for there to not be fires. And so yeah, it was interesting in lots of ways. And one was people's reactions to it, like friends and colleagues in our industry, and people's reactions, and the assumption I'd become a little bit racist now as a natural after effect of this experience was quite an interesting one.
Yeah, you can see how you may have got there, but I don't think I'd assume.
Yeah. And that isn't what happened. I just sort of, I don't get into politics on Facebook, but I did write about this event because it was in the news and everything. And I just thought I should say, I'm safe. This is what happened from my experience. And I can only talk about my experience, but a lot of people using quite horrible language. I said, I sort of have allowed myself to be quite hostile towards the people who actually physically started that fire, but I'm not going to hate everyone a little bit browner than me because of it, who had nothing to do with it. And also, it's a complicated system out there and people have very extreme feelings. So while it's an absolutely unacceptable way of showing your extreme feelings, you've got to look at the wider picture. And maybe have an understanding of that before. And what was really interesting, I'd been publicising what I was doing on this trip. And one of the things was going to an Arab school, is how it was described to me. So this is not me, like, that's not a negative term, to do a day of improv workshops with some of their kids, I guess equivalent to sixth formers. They were doing English and drama. It was in a very, very poor area far up north. And I'd been invited. I was the first guest person coming in to run sessions with them because they never had the money. And the person who was booking my kind of tour and workshop trip had somehow, they'd got in touch with her and together they'd found funding to cover me coming in to do comedy improv workshops with these kids. And I was really looking forward to it. And it was meant to be the next day. And we called the school. I think actually the school heard about it and they called us. And they said, we quite understand if you don't want to come. And I was like, no, I do still want to come. I might not be able to come tomorrow. Like if we could just postpone it. So we put it off for a couple of days. But I had quite a lot of messages from people saying, well, I assume you're not going to go to the Arab school now. And I was like, well, that's a very odd assumption. And 50% of them, I think, were people thinking, I don't know if they were thinking I have to punish everybody for what happened with these two guys, or whether naturally now I'm going to steer well clear because I'll be afraid, or whether assuming, but I think there were some people assuming that I was going to change my attitude. I think that was the thing. But I said, these are kids, they're about 400 miles away or something from where this took place. I don't think I can hold them responsible. You know, they're just kids. And if we all stop talking to each other, where does that lead us? So I went. Absolutely. And it was amazing. And when I got there, the staff who we'd been in touch with, you know, in the planning, they'd gone and they made sure there was like food. They had kosher pitta and hummus and all kinds of yummy stuff and biscuits, and they wanted me to sit down first and be welcome. And then the kids and it was really amazing. And the kids, you know, all kids living in countries which are in sort of stressful unrest have a lot of issues about it, regardless of what side of the conversation they might fall on. And they were very open about it. So in their comedy and in their stand-up, it got very dark. And even in their improv, very dark, because they live in quite a dark kind of time. So yeah, of course. So it was fun and amazing. And I wouldn't have dreamt of not going, and I'm very pleased that I did go, and it was quite a thing. So now you have the whole story, but not the comedy version, but the actual version.
No. Is there a comedy version?
Well, it's in my show. It's No Job for a Nice Jewish Girl. I talk about it because it was a way of coping with it at the time, and
of course,
talking about a bit about how my thoughts I had, like everything I don't know if you're the same, but pretty much everything that happens now gets filtered through a comedy brain.
Oh, while it's happening,
while it's happening, absolutely, and mostly massively inappropriate. And so I've got quite a bit about what I thought during the fire, where my brain was, and then my obsessions afterwards, the things I became obsessed with. And that's the way that we process stuff to own it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, because my show that I'm working on now is called Cyclops, about how I had eye surgery.
Right.
Because I had a number of eye surgeries, one of which left me sort of blind in one eye for a while.
Oh, wow.
But then, I mean, I don't think at that time I was thinking, like, that was pretty bad. I don't think at that time I was thinking, well, this will be funny.
Yeah.
But like later down the line, when I was getting my cataract surgery, I was in the waiting room and stuff was happening, and I was like, write this down right now. Like, don't forget this. And like, I was on the bed, sort of getting the surgery done, and there was stuff happening. I was like, this is very funny. Like, this is fairly funny now. It'll be much funnier on stage once I've written it
and survived.
So, yeah. So now that's it's a good story. It's very funny.
I'm excited to see it. I think actually, if comedians have operations and stuff, they should let us record everything that happens, because once they start giving you anesthetics and everything, you're not going to remember to write everything down. But like, you should say when you're signing your consent form, there should be a box that you can tick that says your phone will be allowed to record or something. Well, from this moment on, just in case anything happens.
We have to tick so many things that, like, because I mean, there was, the woman came round and she like when I was in a waiting room, like she was the nurse, and she had a clipboard and she's taking details, and I just remember when she asked me, she just leant over and she said, so which eye is it you think you're having surgery on today? I was like, I'm not the one who should be asking about that. That is very much a question for the surgeon, surely.
Wow.
Jesus.
Did they have to put like a marker pen cross on the right?
Yeah, she drew a big arrow. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and then like when I was in there, because I don't want to talk too much about it because it is very much part of the story, but then also it's a short part of the story that is an hour-long show. But they, in like hospital TV shows when they're doing surgeries, they always put like a big sort of paper thing, like where they're sort of doing the surgery.
Yeah, with a hole in it.
That's it. Yeah. They put one of those over my eye.
Yeah.
So, like, they'd covered up the arrow anyway. So I hope you remember which one it was.
I think eye surgery is one of the most scary surgeries, because can you see when it's happening?
Well, no.
Or were you asleep?
I was awake for that one. I could have been asleep. So basically, because of COVID, they weren't doing any surgeries that involved general anaesthetic at the time because they couldn't spare the beds.
Oh, well. I don't even know what to say about that. Wow.
Yeah, but they do cataract surgery either under local or general anaesthetic, and it was getting to a point where like my eye was really affecting me, and they said, "Listen, we can do it, but you'd have to have it done under local anaesthetic. Like, is that okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so. Like, sure, let's just get it done, because otherwise it could have been a few months. Like, we didn't know. I think as it turns out, it would have been much longer than that. So." I was like, yeah, fine, let's do it. And I've got some stories out of it, so it's very funny.
Did you at least have like a Valium or something?
No. So literally all I had was they put eye drops in my eye that were just numbing, and they just numbed my eye, and like not even the local area. Like I could feel sort of, my eyebrow and that, but I just couldn't feel my actual eyeball. And presumably, it numbed sort of whatever it touched. But they had it sort of wedged open with a Clockwork Orange style contraption.
Right.
Yeah. So.
God. I mean,
it's interesting.
To me, that's.
But because I couldn't really see. Yeah, it was horrendous. That not actually the worst thing that happened. The worst thing that happened was after that, because so I've got I had a corneal graft, so I've got someone else's cornea in my eye.
Okay.
But where it's done, like because I've gone blind from a thing that I won't mention on this because it might make people stop listening, but. Yeah, so they had to do it quite hastily, like just without the proper planning. Obviously, they took their time doing the surgery. They did it very well, But as a result, it wasn't like that. My eye wasn't the perfect shape when they put it on. So like there's sort of some issues. So as a result, I was on a high dosage of steroid drops for a long time, which caused the cataract to grow.
Okay.
So by having the cataract surgery, like the cornea had settled very well, much better than they thought it would do. But the cataract surgery caused it to sort of essentially wake up and go, no, I'm out of here. So my cornea was trying to... don't know what that was.
So my cornea was trying to escape?
Yeah, it started to reject. And so what happened that was the worst thing that has ever happened is I had a couple of injections directly into my eyeball for which I was awake. Yeah, and that was the worst of any of the, like, I've had 5, I think, not operations necessarily, but procedures on my eye, and that was by far and away the worst one. And I've had a number of other surgeries as well, but that is still the worst.
How did you keep your head still for them to do it?
Just knowing that if I moved, I might go blind. Right. So I had no choice but to stay still.
Because like years ago,
there was a nurse holding my hand, just sort of rubbing my hand, and I was like, I'm so glad she's doing that. It was great. Yeah,
years ago, I was going somewhere in Essex, don't remember where. I was on the A12, and in front of me was like one of those "we take away your rubbish" type trucks, but not with closed door van, one which had like a bed van thing at the back. I can't think what the word is. Okay. A truck bed. Do you know what I mean? An open thing.
Bed, yeah.
And as we were driving on the A12, there was a big gust of wind and loads of like debris came out of it, and it came through my air holes in my car. I don't know what anything's called on a car. Vents thing. It came through there and it went in my eyes, and I had to like pull over to the side of the road. And then I realized, like, I managed to like wipe my eyes, and I had some water in the car and I splashed my eyes, but there was something in my eyes really, really painful. So I went to see an optician, like as an emergency, and they said, yeah, there's something in your eye. It looks like a bit of metal or something. You're going to have to go up to, I guess it was Moorfields or someone like that, and have them take it out for you, because obviously it could cause an infection and all kinds of stuff. So I went up to the hospital, and they put my head like in this contraption so they could see. They put drops in to make everything like big in my eye or whatever. And it was really sore by that point. And I had to like rest my chin on this thing. And then they had to look and said, yeah, we can see it's like a little sliver of metal. We just need to flick it out with a needle. I was like, hold on a minute. You have to do what now? Said, no, it's fine. It's not going in your eye. It's just, it's the end of it is in, the rest of it isn't. We just need to flick it out with a needle. And I was like, right, but what you're telling me is that you're going to put a needle in my eye. And they kept saying, it's not going in your eye. Anyway, so I said, let's just try it. Like, it won't hurt. They did the same thing as you. They put some sort of numbing drops in. Yeah. And I rested my chin on this thing, and it came towards me with this needle at my eye, and I flinched away. And he said, no, you have to stay still. So I said, no, I am trying to stay still. And this happened about, I don't know, 1,000 times, and he was getting more and more frustrated. And I said, like, it's not on purpose, but there's an involuntary reaction, I think, by most people. If someone approaches you towards your eye with a needle, whatever. So I think he then clamped my head into something. and put tape so that it stays open. And then he just then he put the needle like near mine and hovered it so that I wouldn't know when it was going to move. And then he did manage to like flick this thing out, and then I freaked out. I had to run around the room for a few minutes just to like deal with the stress. Then he said, right, put your head in, let me have another look. He had to look. He said, yeah, it's definitely gone. I'm just going to put some ointment on there. And this was the worst bit, worse than the needle, right? Because he put this ointment on it, and then I blinked, which is like obviously quite natural reaction to stuff going in your eye. I blinked, and then my eye stayed closed. And I said, I can't open my eye. He goes, yeah, no, I did the ointment, and then the other stuff is glue. It's just like keep the special antiseptic kind of glue. It just keeps your eye shut while the ointment said stop you getting an infection. I said, but you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me I'm not going to be able to open my eye anymore. And he goes, oh, did I forget? He said, it'll wear off in a day or two. I was like, I can't open my eye. You want to know. You want to have like a good blink. You want to like give it a little rub, do something.
Which obviously like one last go.
It glued my eyes shut without telling me. If I was American, I would sue.
Well, yeah, that'd be fair enough.
Yeah. Glued my eyes shut.
Yeah, bloody hell.
I know. I don't know. I feel I've brought this to a worse place. We've been through a fire, we've been through your cataract surgery. I think that glue, we've taken this to, a horrifying place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it feels like a good time to go to the tea-based questions.
Okay.
That I like to ask for a bit of light relief.
This hasn't been light. I think it's been frothy as anything.
Is come and see my show where I talk about it in great detail.
do see his show. And my show about the fire was going to be filmed by Next Up, but then there was a pandemic and it never happened.
Oh, God. Well, hopefully it will happen. Because you're still doing that show. Because have you been doing that show for like a few years?
Years and years. Yeah, I've sort of stopped it now, except for I would have done it for that. But I did a tour. I did it in various festivals here, and then I did a tour of it here, and then I did a tour of it in Israel, actually. And then it was supposed to go last year to America and this year to America and then to Australia, so the festival's there. But things got in the way of that. Someone ate a bat, someone decorated their flat, and now none of us are allowed to do any of the fun stuff. We have to go back on Zoom. So it still rears its head sometimes. I've had like other shows since then, but there's a lot of fondness for that one, I think. So I'm sure it'll reappear.
Do you think you will record it at some point?
I hope so. When I phone who phones? When I email with my next, please can I have a copy of the show I did with Badil? I will do another reminder, like I'd still like to do that. I think once we can have audiences and stuff again, it would be nice to get that done, because actually I am proud. It was a nice show, won an award and all that, so might as well milk it for all it's worth.
Seen some of the reviews reviewed very well. So
thank you very much, sideaves.
Lovely stuff. So you drink oat milk. What oat milk do you drink? That was a long time ago.
Do I drink? Did I say anything about oat milk? I drink Oatly.
Okay, because they're sending me. I just tweeted them the other day, and I was like, "Listen, people keep talking about Oatly Barista, saying it's the best milk, best milk alternative. So what can we do about this? So send me some." And they were like, "Oh, we'll send you some vouchers, so you can go pick some up." So that's happening soon. But otherwise I would have had that on this podcast. But
I have a little
so have you tried Oatly Barista?
Mini gripe about them, which is that in other countries you can get like small cartons, a bit like, when you get apple juice cartons, little ones, or orange juice for your packed lunch.
Yeah.
You can get that size oat milk, and I don't have it with cereal stuff, I just have it in drinks. So having the big litre cartons means that often quite a bit gets wasted unless I use it in other cooking. And I keep messaging that. I feel like I'm one of those people who used to write into radio programs and television programs, angry from Essex. But you can't get that here. And I have asked them, they said, oh, you can freeze it. I don't want to freeze it. I want to be able to get small cartons. So I got introduced to it in Finland. I'm just showing off that I went to do, when I toured my show, we went to Finland, amongst other things. And in Finland, you can get the small cartons. So if they can get it there, they should have it here.
Yeah, why not here?
Right.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, when I get in touch with them and say, oh yeah, thanks very much for the milk, that's great. It's a shame I couldn't get a smaller carton. They'll...
Thumbs up to you, which is great on a podcast.
We'll double team. Yeah. So you do have normal tea, do you?
I occasionally have tea, but I have only decaf everything's. Okay. So I have decaf tea.
Which what brand?
At the moment, I think we got Tetley decaf in our canister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other people have caf, but I have a neurological thing. We haven't got time to go into all my medical stuff, and I'm not allowed caffeine at all. So
I'll have to get you back on for specifically a medical episode.
Seriously, could I be more Jewish with all my ailments?
Oh, nice. So, do you dunk a biscuit in your tea?
That is a great question, and I'd say rarely, because generally I'm having herbal, and I think it would be weird. Like, what biscuit would work? Yeah. Maybe like a ginger biscuit in lemon and ginger. I've not tried that. I will try that, and I'll feed back to you. But I have been known, or a lemony biscuit, like a lemon. I can't think what they're called. Those nice lemony biscuits. That might be nice in this. But my worry is they're quite a light texture biscuit, like they're quite crumbly, so it could be quite a dry thing. I have been known to put a digestive in. I think that is an acceptable tea-related biscuit, but only very fast because you don't want it falling off. Like once there's crumbs in your tea.
Oh, it's game over. Yeah, sure. Or a little treat at the end. One of the two. Those are the options.
Like out of all the traumatic things we've discussed, and we've discussed a lot of traumatic things, I think your biscuit falling off in your tea.
You look disturbed by that. That was
Oh yeah, peak trauma. I'm a bit OCD about stuff, and that to me, that's the risk isn't worth it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I understand.
I'm enjoying these tea questions because no one has ever asked me them before on a podcast.
Oh really? Well, but you've never been on a tea-based podcast. So.
I don't know how many of them there are. I imagine this is the only one.
It's quite niche. Yeah. Do you drink hot drinks in hot weather to cool you down?
Absolutely. No, I do drink. Well, I mean, I drink hot drinks all year round, and also eat soup. That is, I love soup.
I like soup any day. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the same family of food, isn't it? And I'm like, I'm always very on brands, right? But I love chicken soup. That is my absolute favourite thing to eat in the whole world, apart from maybe donuts. There might be 50-50. But we have chicken soup for Friday night dinner 52 weeks a year. It could be a heat wave. And if we go around to someone's house, like we went to friends once, really close friends, and she said when we arrived, do you know what? Well, no, I think not when we arrived. We'd arrived, we'd had chats, we were in a full sense of security, and we sat down at the dinner table, Friday night dinner, proper Jewish Friday night dinner, and my friend said to me, you know what, I kept thinking, so bored of chicken soup. Immediately, my hackles rise. So bored of chicken soup. Just thought I'd go for butternut squash tonight. I haven't forgiven her. This was about 7 years ago. I'm still annoyed about it now. Who makes me butternut squash soup on Friday night? I'd rather have gone without, but I couldn't because we were guests. Had to have nothing wrong with her butternut squash soup, but it was not chicken. But yeah, I will have soup in hot weather and hot drinks in hot weather. I don't think it makes you any hotter, and it's delicious. Have it, enjoy.
I mean, I'll disagree to an extent there. Like I will have both in hot weather, absolutely. But it does make me hotter. Certainly doesn't cool me down. Because people say it regulates your body temperature, and I think that is absolute nonsense. It makes you sweat.
When you drink a hot drink, when it's hot, you think it makes you sweat?
Yeah, of course. It doesn't make me cooler.
I think it does, because it's a bit like when you, if you go swimming and the water's really hot, then when you come out, you feel cooler, even though it's the same air that when you went in, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I understand the theory behind it. But also, like by that same regard, in the middle of winter, do you drink an ice cold drink to warm you up?
Interesting question. Would I drink an ice cold drink to warm me up in winter? I don't know. I don't want to upset you here. I don't know that I've ever given that this much thought. But we are now in the winter, and if the temperature drops, I'm going to try it.
As of today, actually.
Yeah, it did feel cold this morning.
Yeah.
Right. I will do that experiment, and I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to write down now. I've got a Dunkin', a ginger snap.
You've got so much homework.
Seriously, I've got to go in the cold weather and have a cold drink. I think I would have the drink that tickled my fancy. I don't think.
Yeah, but as long as it's freezing cold.
Freezing cold, okay. I'm writing it down. Freezing cold drink.
I mean, the question got an answer, and that's what these questions are for.
Okay.
Potentially inconclusive, but we'll see.
At least I'm prepared to put the work in.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Yeah, many people don't. I had a good and proper tea rooibos, by the way.
Did you?
That is, it was really delicious. They sent me a few different ones, and I've had this on here before, but I've not recorded an episode in a little while. I really fancied one. And it's very good. I'll give you the description. It is a honey sweet, caffeine-free cup with notes of dried cherries and vanilla.
Wow. So my husband loves that. He loves rooibos tea. I'm sure he would love that one because he's a big cherry fan. But I don't really like it. Sorry. Because I think it smells too antiseptic.
Yeah. No, I understand where you're coming from. This is by far and away the nicest rooibos I've had.
Okay.
And they sent me this for free to try on a podcast. So I'm not just plugging it because they sent it to me. It is genuinely that good.
What's the make? And I'll write that down.
It's Good and Proper Tea.
Good and Proper Tea. Oh, I think I've got some here because...
Have you?
I don't want to show off, but I am. It is quite a funny story. I went to present awards at a big awards ceremony a few weeks ago. This will make you laugh a bit. I was replacing famous comedy actress Sally Phillips, right?
Oh, okay.
So Sally Phillips, amazing and a big fan and everything. She couldn't do it. And she put a little shout out to see if anyone could cover it for her. And I think I might have been the only person who said that they could. So they invited me, not Sally Phillips, to come instead. And it was incredible. It was for NHS Heroes and it was just like amazing. And I'll tell you that my opening remark when I went on stage was, because it was very short notice, they hadn't had time to change all their publicity stuff. I said, I know, and I was introduced by my actual name, but I went on stage and I said, I know what you're thinking. It's been a long lockdown, but Sally Phillips has let herself go. And it did get a very good laugh.
Lovely stuff.
So I was quite pleased with that.
Yeah.
But so the reason I'm telling you this is that they gave us goodie bags from different donors who'd like given stuff. And it had, amongst other things, teas in it.
Lovely.
And I think they might be from that make. I'm going to go and dig them out and have a look.
Yeah, they're really good. It's a nice sort of little independent tea company. And I really enjoy their story. They've got it all on their Instagram. So worth checking out. But yeah, very tasty teas.
Good.
Their rooibos, delicious. And their breakfast tea, also delicious. So
they have peppermint tea.
They do have peppermint tea. I've just remembered that's in there as well. Also very, very good. So yeah.
Okay. I will investigate them. So you've made one sale.
Yeah. Lovely stuff. Yeah, tell them you're buying it because of me. Send them an email.
I will.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we got more tea questions? I'm quite into it now.
I've got more questions. They're not tea-based.
All right.
Right. I once had a really weird dream, right? And as a result of the dream and the things that happened in it, I woke up and at 3 a.m, Googled, what is the coldest that Julie Walters has ever been? What's the weirdest question you've ever asked as a result of a dream?
I mean, I have really weird Technicolor, HD, whatever dreams all the time. So I've probably asked many weird questions. Recently, I woke up and I shouted at my husband who was getting dressed, have you asked Stuart for the photo albums yet? Because he's getting really annoyed about it. And my husband's like, what are you on? And I was like, yeah, just Stuart's giving me a really hard time about the photo albums. And he said, what photo albums and are you awake? And then I realised I'd had a dream where as part of the dream, not even like I'd say a particularly exciting part, our friend Stuart had a conversation with me about doing, when you gather all your pictures together and put them in a photo book.
Yeah.
That he wanted to do those. And for some reason, in and out of this dream about some completely different things, Stuart, who I'll be honest with you, has never once discussed photo books with me ever. And I've been, I've known him since I was 12. So in the dream, he kept popping in and saying like, oh, have you not done the photo books yet? Just tell Mark to do the photo books. Just tell he's got to do the photo books. And I woke up, I was so angry about it. So probably that's a recent example.
That's a great one.
Have you sorted the photo books for Stuart? Yeah. And he hasn't either, by the way. He hasn't dealt with it.
Unbelievable. I love that you had to point out that wasn't a particularly exciting part of the dream. Like, I don't think there's anyone that heard that thinking, well, this is riveting. Go on.
Well, I do. I have very exciting dreams. I have the sort of dreams where you wake up and you're exhausted because you've just been so busy.
Yeah. I was snowboarding the other day. That was nice.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
I did a lot of flying dreams as a child.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but it was always just like around my house.
I have quite a few recurring dreams. I've got one which is a bit like, not the film The Running Man, not the Schwarzenegger film, but more like the book, the original Stephen King story, where you have to just evade capture and you have to send these videos back twice a day to about where you are. And the rooms in that, it's always the same places where I end up, same gardens, same buildings, same rooms and corridors. in that dream. I've been having that dream since I read that book as a teenager.
Oh, really?
And I always think one day I'm going to go somewhere. We'll go to like a stately home. I'm never going to stately homes, but we'll be somewhere. We'll go somewhere. Maybe it's for someone's wedding. And I'll find myself in one of these rooms that I've dreamt about. That's my theory.
Interesting.
I'm so glad you're not a therapist.
Well, I'm writing stuff down. No, I'm not. I've had a number of recurring dreams in my life. There's one in particular. I had a recurring fever dream.
Did you?
Yeah, where like any time I had a fever, I'd have the same dream where I was being chased across. It was globe shaped, but it was like a globe shaped chessboard, and I was being chased across this chessboard by Nazis.
There's a lot of them about.
Yeah, but in like full sort of World War II regalia. So
right.
Yeah.
I mean, unsurprisingly, I'm quite familiar with a Nazi dream here or there. Yeah. My grandparents did it in real life. So, yes, that's, well, I think the classic fever dream is that your hands swell up like two balloons, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
That's now I've forgotten what they're called. How awful. Pink Floyd lyric.
Right, okay. Fair enough. As part of that dream, there was like a wooden sphere that would go in my mouth for some reason, and I could always wake up and feel it there, like sort of unable to close my mouth properly. It's weird.
Do you ever get like sleep paralysis?
Yeah, I've had just the once, and I woke up from this weird dream, and I had a spider crawling up my arm, and then the spider it didn't pop, it just sort of into just thousands and thousands of tiny little spiders that were all crawling up.
Baby spiders.
Yeah. And they were getting near my face, and I was sort of blowing, trying to get them off, and it wouldn't come off. And then I think I actually woke up from that dream and then saw an actual spider crawling up my arm, and then I was trying to blow that off, and then I went to sort of whack it off and realised I can't move. And then my brain just kicked in and said, oh, this is sleep paralysis. And as soon as I had that realisation, I woke up and the spider was no longer there. So it wasn't real. But yeah, that was weird.
Weird stuff. Yeah, once you've sussed it, like with anything, with nightmares and everything, once you suss it, you're always all right. And someone once, I used to be a therapist amongst many things that I've done. And there's not enough hours in the day, Si. Yeah. And because I didn't like go on a normal path to anything, I didn't just like go to school, then go and do a degree and then get a job. I never did any of that. But I mean, I did a bit of school. So I've gone on a very circuitous route to things. But I remember having a training, because I worked a lot with children, about how you can implant the idea in yourself that, and it's not really an idea, it's a fact. We're all in control of our dreams to an extent, right? They're reflections of our thought processes. So to every problem that arises in a dream, you've already got the solution because you've created that problem, right? You've invented it in your head. So like if you tell kids when they're having bad dreams, this is your upcoming father, so this is a useful thing for you. If you tell your kids that whatever problem they encounter in a dream, the solution is somewhere right next to them, it takes away the scariness. So for example, if there's a dragon coming towards you and you don't know what to do, you've definitely created a sword that can kill that dragon. It's just, you just have to put your hand down and get it, because that's your dragon you've made up. You've definitely got the sword that will kill it. So you can train yourself to always know when you're having a nightmare or whatever, you've got the solution sitting there and you can just sort it out.
Nice.
Is that interesting?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Well, what I found interesting was as soon as you said, if you've got a dragon chasing you, my brain said, and you've definitely created a situation where you can befriend it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be an alternative, I suppose.
Not sure why, but there you go. I think I want to be friends with a dragon.
I think a dragon friend would be excellent. It's like becoming best friends with Bully in your class, and then, it's your protection.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to ask one more question.
Okay.
So I feel like this could be interesting because your name's not particularly complicated, so it should be straightforward. But regardless, this always garners some interesting answers. What's the worst way you've ever been introduced to stage? Because I was once introduced to stage as sideaves. Presumably they thought I was some kind of Colombian drug lord.
Okay, so I talked about this in my show Hineni, and I've talked about it on stage a lot. I think there's been a few, and one of them was I was performing in a club, and it was like a little divey club, and the compere used to be a Chippendale, like as in the strippers.
Oh.
But now he's like in his 50s, and he decided, I was the only woman, obviously, and he decided before I came on to do material about how and it wasn't in England, by the way, this took place abroad. I'm not going to say where because I don't want to identify the club. But anyway, he decided to do material about how his body has changed from being a stripper in his 20s, like a man in his late 50s now. And he went into quite graphic detail about his lower parts.
Oh, God.
And then he brought me on stage and he more or less went, anyway, that's what happened to my balls. Are you ready for the next act? She's a comedian from the UK. I have no idea what she's doing here. It's Rachel Creeger.
Oh,
so no. I don't know what level of that, what layer of that was more awful, but that was quite awful. So I had that one. I don't know if that's the worst, but that was quite a bad one. Recently, I got brought on stage as you're going to love that. I'm going to bring on your next act. She's a lovely little lady.
Oh,
a lovely little lady. And at the end of my set, that compere went, didn't she do well? She did do well, didn't she? She did really well.
Jesus.
So that was nice.
And who was that? Who did that? I'll bleep it. It's fine.
I'm not going to say. I'll tell you very much when you're not recording. And then I did have one, like, because I do a lot of stuff for community groups and charities or whatever. And I had one, again, like something I've spoken about quite a bit, where I was waiting to come on stage and the compere of the event, so it wasn't just stand-up, there were lots of different things happening. Right. The compere of the event, it was just like someone who's part of that community group, whatever. So he said to me, Rachel, how would you like me to introduce you? And I said, I'm sure whatever you've written down is fine. So then he went like, no, I mean, like, how would you like to be introduced? And I was like, well, I don't know, I guess award-winning comedian or something is plenty. You don't need to go into my whole life story. That's fine. And they said, no, you personally, do you want me to bring you on as Mrs. Creeger or Ms. Creeger? And I said, like, well, just my name's fine, like Rachel Creeger. That's enough, because, you know, this isn't a Handmaid's Tale. I mean, you know, my husband's a religious man. He's never said you have to come on stages of Mark, like I'm allowed. God. I mean, I think women have been allowed to be known by their names pretty much from the beginning of names, maybe 20% later or whatever. But like, no, I said to him, just my name, Rachel Creeger, that's fine. He went, oh, that's very modern. I didn't think that was modern. I thought that was quite acceptable, but yeah. So I've had quite a few weird,
modern compared to, you know, the first century, I guess, but
maybe. Yeah. I mean, the other people he'd introduced, I don't really know. The person before me was a 10-year-old boy singing folk songs, which is like ideal for comedy in every way, in a like very high voice breaking.
Not a lot of crossovers.
Not really. So yeah, I've had a lot of weird intros. I think those are amongst the weirdest. I did have an intro once where I was introduced as a Jewish comedian and people booed. No. So that was nice. Yeah.
Where was that?
I've had it actually more than once. During the Fringe. I've had that.
God.
They booed for that. And then I had one, I was part of a showcase thing at the Fringe. And when I think I mentioned that I did a story about a gig in Tel Aviv or something. I can't remember, but it wasn't a political story because I don't really have any.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of shouting of Free Palestine, and people marched out. No so that was like my introduction to myself. And then people marched out because they think somehow that I have any kind of influence on that situation. It's nice that people think I have that level of power.
Good grief.
So, yeah, I've had a few interesting introductions, but I think that's what happens in my balls. Let me welcome your next act. That's probably my favourite of those. Perfect.
Yeah.
Really perfect. Oh, I did have one recently where a compere, and again, I'm born up name names, but the compere decided to... it was quite a small audience. One of the women in the front had gone to the loo, and the way the room was laid out, the loos were sort of behind where the stage area was. There was sort of a corridor with the toilets.
Right.
And he made some joke about how it was a small audience, so 20% of the audience had gone to the toilet, which wasn't, I'm not good at maths, but that wasn't an accurate statistic. There were more. And he And then he sort of started making a lot of jokes about her length of time she was spending on the toilet. And he actually followed around to the door of the toilet to sort of not grab her, physically touch her, but as she came out, and made kind of slightly primary school playgroundsy comments about, give it 5 minutes type of comments. Anyway, you ready for your next act? It's again, Rachel Creeger. That's me. If there's one thing I know how to follow, it's things to do with the bottom half of your body. Yeah. That's what we've learned.
I'll write that down, actually, just in case.
What can I tell you?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome stage after my arsehole, Rachel Creeger.
I mean, that wouldn't faze me at all now. No, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's my correct. That's my correct level in comedy.
Yeah. I mean, there's more to the lower half of my body. I could have said my knees or my feet. But no, apparently I went directly for the, I will say, wrong side.
Yeah.
Christ. Where can people find you online?
Well, after anyone's mentioned their nether regions, I'm pretty much there.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rach Creeger. And my podcast is Talkin To Me with Philip Simon, but I'm supposed to pronounce it like the famous quote, Talkin To Me. That's
Which is
on
an incredible podcast. It's one of my favourite podcast names I've heard in a good while.
Ah, thank you. Do you know what? My husband came up with it. It's pretty good. We had lots of different conversations, but I have to give him credit where credit's due. But yeah, Talkin To Me is on all the usual podcast platforms. So when you've listened to all of Si's tea-related oeuvre, I can't pronounce that. Anyway, you can chime in. That's a lovely one where Philip, Simon and I chat to people from across the media, entertainment and arts industries about their Jewishness. And I have to say, it is the opposite of an educational podcast. If you learn something from it, then we've kind of failed. It's mainly about what's the best falling out you know about and what's your favourite story about food. Yeah. And it's not for... It is gossip. There's been amazing gossip on it. We had Boyd Hilton, who's the entertainment. I'm just trying to think of his official title. I think he's like the entertainment director, the entertainment editor for Heat magazine, who went to school actually with me and my husband.
Oh, right.
And he told us an amazing story about how he kicked off an argument between George Michael and Elton John.
What?
So.
Amazing.
That's quite a brilliant story. So we've got everything. That's a great story. There's also a lovely story by Jay Foreman. I don't know if you know Jay, who's a musical comedian. His favourite falling out story was about I think it was his grandma went on a cruise and met Uri Geller, who bent a spoon for her. And when she came, when she got home, they had like a big family tea to welcome her back. You know, every family's got like the mean auntie.
Yeah.
And so she was sitting near the mean auntie, and maybe it was her sister even, but the grandma, she told them all about meeting Ugella, and she brought out the spoon, and the mean auntie said something like, well, that's not a big deal. Anyone can bend a spoon, and unbent it. Cue a falling out. So there are great stories on it. And as I say, it's not going to help anyone pass their RE GCSE.
No.
But it's good gossip, definitely. So we're just recording the 4th series of that at the moment. So yeah. And apart from that, none of us have any gigs because of Corona for a while.
Yeah.
So when I do have some, they'll be on social media, on my website, rachelcreeger.com.
Lovely. Are you doing anything online?
I will be, I think. I'm doing a couple of things for an organisation called Limmud, which is a big arts and culture festival, Jewish arts and culture festival that's on over Christmas every year. Usually it's an in-person conference type event, and there's all different strands. You can, there's politics stuff, there's theatre and music, there's comedy, obviously, and it's a bit like doing the Edinburgh Fringe, but Jews. And they have thousands of people normally, and it's residential, and it's amazing. Obviously, it's had to pivot online the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a comedy gig and a couple of panels for them next week. But I think we're going to be looking at doing online stuff in January, aren't we, all of us?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because it is what it is. So, yeah, keep an eye out. Hopefully there'll be some online fun.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. I mean, I think this might be the longest podcast in history.
No, afraid not. Not even close. No, I think the last one we recorded for longer than this with Matt Green. So
really,
yeah,
he's so brilliant, Matt.
He's lovely, yeah. And as I told
his videos have really kept me entertained during the pandemic, I have to say.
Yeah, they're very funny.
I gave him a little shout out about that. They're amazing. And he's been so prolific. There's been practically something new every 10 seconds, I feel like. Yeah. Amazing.
There's at least one thing a day, I think. It's really smashing it out. Yeah, it's doing very well.
Yeah.
Right. I need to go and cook lunch for my wife and I.
Enjoy.
Yes, I will. We're going to, I won't tell you what we have because it's not kosher, but we're having sausages.
You can tell me if it's not kosher, just don't make me eat it. And I would love to know what you're eating. There's one thing I'm interested in, it's what someone's eating.
Yeah, well, due to the COVID status of us both, we've had to cancel our, because our wedding anniversary was going to be Christmas Eve. Well, it still is, but... We're not having people around, so we're getting through the party food that we bought. So we've got some bake at home baguettes and some nice fresh sausages and a bit of mustard and ketchup on there. Lovely.
Sounds gorgeous. You know what? My friend was meant to get married yesterday.
Oh, really?
What's today? Tuesday? No, on Sunday. She meant to get married on Sunday, and they asked everyone to do lateral flows on Saturday night before the wedding, and only one person tested positive, which is obviously amazing in this Omicron stage. Yeah. Except for it was the groom.
No.
So the wedding got cancelled. So yeah. Oh, no. At least you'll get to spend your anniversary together. He's in isolation.
Yeah.
And wedding got called off. Very sad.
God. Oh man, that's unpleasant, isn't it? Of all the people, that is. There's only one other person that would be that bad for it to be. But
yeah,
I suppose almost as bad would be. Is it a Jewish friend?
It was a Jewish friend, actually.
So the rabbi. Does a rabbi perform a ceremony?
Yeah, but you can always find another rabbi to step in. You can't. Yeah. I mean, finding another groom at that short notice, that's hard.
That would be more difficult for sure.
Not impossible.
No. Put a call out on Facebook. Listen, does anyone know?
If you described it as a gig, it would be gone in about 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Unpaid gig.
Ringer.
Might pay off. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, very nice. Nice. Right. I'll let you go. And what are you having for lunch?
Great question. I think probably some kind of roll with something in it, because that's what's sitting on the counter. So yeah, a roll and something. Maybe smoked salmon just to keep up the whole Jewish thing.
Yeah. With cream cheese.
I'm lactose intolerant, as I mentioned. Yes. So yeah, unlikely to include. Actually, I do have dairy-free cream cheese. I bought a new make to try.
Yeah.
So maybe I will have cream cheese.
Have you ever had Violife cream cheese? I don't know.
It's got coconut in it, so I can't have it. Oh, yeah. Don't get me started. I told you need a separate show for that. Honestly, just my allergies and intolerances alone, we could do an hour and a half of that.
Oh man, because Violife cream cheese is very nice, and obviously
thank you.
But some drilling started. That's good timing. We're reaching the end of drilling has started, so glad that.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks for coming on. Right. It's ended quickly. Let's do this. It's been lovely to have you on, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon, Si. Lovely chatting as always.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
So that was Rachel Creeger. You can find her online. She's at rachelcreeger.com. You can find her on the socials at Rach Creeger, RACHCREEGER. And you can listen to her podcast with Philip Simon, Talkin To Me, which is a title that I absolutely love. Philip Simon also going to be a future guest. I've just not had him on yet, but a very funny man indeed. So go and listen to that after you've listened to this, and have a lovely time. In the meantime, Happy Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope you had a Happy Christmas, and I hope you had a Happy New Year, and I hope the rest of the year is prosperous for you all. Oh, another reminder to go and get tickets for my Leicester Comedy Festival show on the 17th and 18th of February. You can find links for that on my Linktree, which I'll put on the podcast description, but it's just linktr.ee/sideaves, and there's links directly on there to go and find me on the Leicester Comedy Festival website. And there's also loads of other links to subscribe to the podcast, to donate to my Ko-fi page, where you can help me. Oh, here's the big news that I didn't mention at the beginning. I'm having a baby. So feel free to donate some money. Help me pay for that. And if you want that to go directly to the baby, then just put a little message on there, and I'll do that. That's another reason I've been so busy. Is couldn't mention it before. This is the news that was keeping me up. Well, I've been busy with buying a house and writing a sitcom and working and all that sort of thing. But also, crucially, having a baby. So big stuff. You don't have to donate, but if you do, that'd be really lovely. And I'm sure the baby will thank you one day. Thanks for listening, everyone. I love you. Goodbye.